Luffy and Hancock, Zoro and Hiori, Kaya and Usopp. One Piece fans sure do love themselves a good ship, so once the journey around the Grand Line is over and Luffy's Pirate King, who are all of the Straw Hats actually going to settle down with? So imagine this, the quest for the One Piece has ended and it's now time for the Straw Hats to sail back across the Grand Line to head back home. But along the way, they're all gonna find the loves of their life, and Sanji knows exactly who he wants to marry. Well, which two people he actually wants to marry. To celebrate finding the All Blue, Sanji immediately gets down on one knee and proposes to both Nami and Robin, of course, and is immediately rejected by both of them. They are like 0% interested. In fact, they only like him for his cooking, but the constant nosebleeds are a huge turnoff. But wait, all hope is of course not lost yet for the most romantic member of the crew. Didn't he like really hit it off with Viola from Dressrosa? I mean, surely the island of love and passion is where he can finally reunite with his soulmates. Nope, turns out that she already found someone else. She went ahead and got into a political marriage with one of the Fishman Island princes, who by the way was way into the fact that she could cry whales. You snooze, you lose, good chef. But wait, Fishman Island? Of course, that gives Sanji an even better idea. He'll just go and marry a beautiful mermaid. However, once the crew arrives back at Fishman Island, he once again almost dies from his terminal nosebleed. It'll just never work out. On the other hand though, thankfully, Jimbe does actually finally settle down here. A beautiful shark lady named Charlie reads Jimbe's fortune, which says that they will be together forever. Good on you, Jimbe. She's really a babe. Now, sure, Jimbe didn't get along too well with her half-brother Arlong. Yes, they are related once he got all evil and stuff, but hey, they can let bygones be bygones. And oh, by the way, being in Fishman Island reminds me that some people on the internet actually used to ship Luffy and Shirahoshi together back in the day. And even though this hypothetical will probably take place a few years later in the timeline, Shirahoshi is 16 and I am not shipping a child with anyone. And if you are hoping to see Bonnie paired with anyone in this video, nope, absolutely not. Crepes. But let's instead now focus on some actual realistic One Piece ships. No, not like the Thousand Sunny, wrong kind of ships. What I mean is that there are still plenty of other perfect One Piece couples that we need to see to go, so let's keep finding the Straw Hats their perfect soulmates. By this time, Sanji is pretty certain that he's destined to just die alone, so to cheer him up, the crew decides to take a trip to Wano to see some old friends there. Of course, the pleasure district there is the only thing that's really on his mind though. But while revisiting the Kozuki clan though, Sanji's depression only deepens because the most beautiful woman in all of Wano, Hiori, just rose herself at Zoro and begs for his hand in marriage. Sanji is absolutely mortified. How could Zoro, this stupid musshat, possibly have better luck with women than he does with all that he does for them? Sanji begs her to reconsider, to marry him instead, but she's just like, the Soba guy? Ew, no. And he quietly mumbles to himself about being a prince, but she's too busy getting rejected by Zoro, the #1 heartbreaker in all of One Piece. So maybe Sanji will have a chance with Yamato? Nope. Just in time, Yamato busts in with her new boyfriend, Katakuri. I mean, come on. Kaido and Big Mom were pretty great allies back in the day, so it just makes sense that their kids would kind of hit it off as well. I mean, talk about a power couple. At this point, Sanji is just in the depths of despair. He is just convinced that he is doomed to die alone at this point, but then he remembers the one person who has always been there with him. As he gazes at the skull of Onigashima resting near the flower capital, he remembers the tender moments that he shared there with Zoro in the dim candlelight when he tended to Zoro's wounds and wrapped him up in a big pack of bandages. Could this be love? No, he hates that stupid Mossad. Meanwhile though, Brook takes a pilgrimage up to the top of Mount Fuji. I mean, he fears that his time for love has long passed. After all, who would want to be with a literal skeleton? And it's a real shame that the Soul King of all people doesn't get a soul mate, but as he gazes into the boiling lava of the volcano, he remembers the magical night that he had once spent with Big Mom, the one who got away. However, at last, Big Mom and Kaido got to settle all of the differences and ended up together forever in the grave in that volcano. I mean, they would make a great couple if they weren't so super dead. But not all hope is lost yet for Sanji though, because there are still many islands left on on the Grand Line where he could finally find his true love. So onwards to Zou, where no one wants to settle down with a human boy like Sanji, but Chopper, on the other hand, he gets all the Garchus there. He could end up with Carrot and end up being the king of Zou, honestly, but no. Chopper has his eye on another, Milky, the reindeer babe who has stolen his whole heart ages ago. And I mean, come on, this is just the perfect pairing for Chopper. Carrot literally calls him big bro all the time, so they just don't have that type of relationship, I think. But whenever Milky's around, Chopper goes all hearty eyes just like Sanji does. If you remember the Zou arc, it was basically love at first sight. Really. Oh, great, Sanji now thinks to himself, even the youngest crew member has now found someone for himself, and I am still alone forever. Now Luffy at this point sees just how bummed out Sanji really is, and after rubbing his two brain cells together really hard and long enough though, he finally has formulated a thought. Maybe it'll cheer Sanji up to visit his family. So they head over to the Germa kingdom because in Luffy's tiny brain, he thinks that maybe Sanji's dad will know some nice girl that he can set up his son with. However, instead, Sanji's mental health is just instantly obliterated when his sister Reiju instead hits on his captain. She just can't stop thinking about that magical kiss that she shared with the Pirate King when she sucked a bunch of poison out of him before Whole Cake Island. And so she goes down, proposes, offering Luffy the keys to the Germa kingdom and a chance to be Sanji's actual brother. However, despite Reiju's immense beauty, of course Luffy being Luffy, he just rejects her outright and says that he has another person in mind. What? The crew's reaction is the same as mine and is probably yours. Surprise? Shock? Oh, I mean, come on, shipping Luffy with anyone? Who could this lucky lady be that Luffy actually wants to be with? Isn't he aromantic? I personally didn't even think that Luffy was capable of feeling attraction for like anyone. Perhaps we'll find out on the island of Alabasta though, but not before a quick detour to Tim Burton Island so that Zoro can see Mihawk and also reject Perona. I think I'm not even speculating here when I say that she probably really came to fancy him over the time skip, but Heartbreaker Zoro doesn't want a beautiful goth girlfriend either because he thinks that she's way too annoying. So sorry Perona, I'm pretty sure that there's somebody out there for you. Personally, I think you do great with Bartolomeo. Punks and goths do go together like peanut butter and jelly after all, but we'll see, that's up to you. Okay, now actually onto Alabasta though. And of course, Luffy wants to get together with Vivi. I mean, it's the perfect match. The Pirate King and the Pirate Queen, who's like a literal actual queen and a D member as well, and it fulfills the love that probably existed back in the day between Joy Boy and Nefertari D. Lily. Oh, nope, I guess Luffy just wanted to say hi, but if Luffy's not interested, then who will Vivi end up with? Who will then be the new king of Alabasta? Koza, her childhood friend? No, come on, get out of here. It's Nami. Alabasta doesn't need a king, it needs two queens, let's be honest. Now, this is a fanship that has existed in the community for a long, and I can't stretch this enough, long time. And I mean, come on, just rewatch the Alabasta saga and tell me that Nami and Vivi are not literally in love with each other. I guess the only real problem with this pairing happening is that it gets really confusing when they're drawn in black and white because without their hair colors, I mean, sometimes you just barely can tell the two apart, honestly. Oh, and did I upset anyone who wanted Luffy and Nami to end up together? I mean, kind of hate to break it to you, but that's kind of silly. I mean, the crew is a family. They should not be dating each other. Luffy and Nami have never ever shown any romantic interest in each other. The only reason anyone would think that they should be together is because you think that the main boy and the main girl should automatically end up together. And I mean, while I'm talking about it right now, I should probably acknowledge the fact that Oda has talked about how he doesn't really want to write about romance between the crew anyway at all, which probably some of you have already typed in the comments. And yes, I'm still making this video anyways because it's fun and I wanted to do it, but wow, I mean, for a series where the first chapter is literally called Romance Dawn, there sure isn't a lot of romance dawning. But hey, I mean, shippers are gonna ship, and so am I, so I have an even better partner in mind for Luffy later on. And I hear what you're saying now. Come on, Manu. I mean, surely we can have at least one crew-on-crew relationship. I mean, Frankie and Robin are like the fun aunt and uncle of the group. They do have great chemistry together. They're both highly intelligent, but unfortunately for all of you Frankie and Robin shippers out there, he does ask her out and she's flattered, but it turns out that Robin and Law actually have been secretly dating since the Wano arc. And come on, be real with me, you kind of have to admit that that's something that these two would absolutely have been doing officially in the story. I mean, you can kind of see it, no? It's not just me, right? Both of them are just so quiet and secretive that they just never actually mention it to anyone. Kind of like how Robin has gone the entire time skip without saying to Luffy, hey, by the way, I hung out with your dad and your presumed dead childhood friend for 2 years. Maybe I should mention that. But come on, I mean, Law and Robin are perfect for each other. They share the same dream to uncover the secret of the poneglyphs, and what is more important in One Piece than dreams? Also, beyond just that, they both have those too cool for school personas. Law loves Robin's dark, twisted sense of humor, and Robin thinks that it's really cute that Law's secretly a big old nerd who absolutely loves comic books. And of course, they both love hanging out with their trusted animal companions, Bippo and Chopper. Really, the more I look at this, I really just feel like these two are just made for each other, but there are still plenty of more ships that we gotta go through. So if Frankie sadly can't be with Robin, who will he be with? Will he just build himself a new nice robot wife? I mean, if only there was a fellow science-loving babe out there somewhere in one... Oh, wait, there it is. Frankie learned a whole lot about robotics by studying Vegapunk's research, but now he will learn a whole lot about love from Dr. Vegapunk as well, specifically Vegapunk Lilith, his hot new science wife. And come on, I mean, you can see it, right? These two have pretty good chemistry as well. As for Sanji though, he's just seeing couples form all around him, and he is just beyond bummed out at this point, verging on the point of depression. There's really only one person that he can now turn to in this very trying time, his loving dad, nope, not Judge, his real dad, Zeph. And so the crew now heads over to the East Blue so that Sanji can eat his feelings out at the Baratier. But on their way back through Reverse Mountain, Brook finally reunites with someone very special to him. I mean, it's not romantic love, because it would be kind of weird if Brook was dating a whale, though he was hitting on Big Mom, but Brook and Laboon are reunited at last. But turns out that the East Blue was a really bad idea, because now Sanji has to deal with even Usopp getting married before him. He has been outdone by the crew member with the objectively least amount of riz of everyone, because of course Usopp is gonna marry Kaya back home in Syrup Village. She has always been waiting for him while he went out on his adventures, and very much unlike his dad, Usopp actually came back. What a concept. And as a perk, he's now married into a massive fortune that he can use to fund all of his dumb inventions and art projects. And also, just saying, but Usopp would probably be like the world's greatest and goofiest dad, despite not ever having had a real father figure himself. And then over in Loketown, even Sanji's greatest rival Zoro finally reunites with his ideal match. However, on the way to propose to her, he does get lost and passes Buggy and Alvida spending their honeymoon together, drinking wine at Roger's execution platform and remembering the first big scheme they ever plotted together. But then finally, he does make it to the marine base where he finds Tashigi. Now, of course, at first she just assumes that Zoro is there for a duel, but instead he gets down on one knee and asks her for her hand in marriage. Let's be real here, there have been plenty of people on the Grand Line who threw themselves at Zoro, but for the King of Hell to spend his life with someone, they're gonna have to be just as big of a sword nerd as he is. Finally, he recognizes her as her own person, independent of Kuina, and they are bonded together in holy matrimony, and mostly in swordsmanship, let's be honest here. Smoker, of course, is pretty mad at the idea of Tashigi getting together with one of the Straw Hats at first, but his new wife Hina does convince him that it's all good. Okay, but now, honestly, who will Sanji possibly end up with? Basically, every woman in the world has already rejected him at this point, and who is Luffy's mysterious love interest gonna be? Well, before leaving the East Blue, the crew first has to make a stop over at the Boa Kingdom, and while there, Luffy reunites with Makino and is surprised to see Shanks there as well, along with the baby that they probably had together as well. Well, first of all, I don't know what's more surprising, Shanks being there as a loving husband or Shanks still being alive at the end of the story, but also it does make a lot of sense that someone who loves drinking as much as Shanks does would end up with a bartender. And also celebrating their honeymoon in the Boa Kingdom are Sabo and Koala of the Revolutionary Army. You know it. Because of course, Sabo would want to show her around the place where he had like the most traumatic childhood ever, because after all, if it hadn't been for him nearly being killed by the nobles there, they would have never met. How sweet of him. But at this point, Sanji has just given up hope completely. He has traveled literally the entire globe. He even found the All Blue, and people always tell him there are plenty of fish in the sea, but he literally found every fish and still no one will marry him. But then Luffy has a great idea because he knows a whole island of just women. And honestly, that's a bit of a better idea than the first one because maybe Amazon Lily will actually cheer Sanji up. Nope, not only does Sanji once again suffer major blood loss here, he is even more mortified when the literal most beautiful woman in the entire world throws herself at his captain. And to everyone's legit surprise, Luffy actually accepts her proposal. I mean, before he never even gave her the time of day, but it turned out that the Pirate Empress Boa Hancock finally found the way to Luffy's heart. Because by promising him an infinite quantity of very delicious meat, she has finally locked down her man as well. As for Sanji though, thankfully, finally, their good friend Katakuri calls up the crew and just asks, dude, why don't you just get back together with my sister? She's totally into you. Now at first, Sanji is really confused here, but once Charlotte Pudding actually puts back the lost memories of their steamy kiss, it finally comes all flooding back to him. Yep, I bet you also forgot that Pudding actually removed those memories from Sanji's head altogether. Now he just can't stop staring into her three beautiful eyes, thinking about their future together. And Pudding does truly share his passion, not for gorgeous babes, but for cooking. And yes, it's a little bit unconventional, but this time they do actually make their own wedding cake. They do have their cake and they eat it too. And I hope it's not just me, but also you who really wants to see Sanji end up with Pudding because those two just fit together so well. And so all the Straw Hats lived happily ever after. But of course, there is a lot more to life than just love. So besides everyone coupling up at this point, what else will actually happen once One Piece ends? Will Nami actually finish making a map of the entire world? Will Usopp become a brave warrior of the sea? Well, to find out, check out my video about everything that will happen after Luffy becomes Pirate King below here. And otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for supporting me on Patreon. And otherwise, I will see you in this next one.